Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks to
Hey, hi everyone, welcome back, and we hope you've had a good lunch and a very enjoyable tour of the IDP lab earlier. So, as we delve further into today's theme, it's our honor to introduce Associate Professor Kamin Yen, Vice Dean for Undergraduate Studies at the School of Computing. So, Prof. Khan is a visionary in the AI field, and his research also includes data-driven learning models and the integration of AI into real-world applications. So his work not only advances the theoretical foundations of AI, but also addresses practical challenges in education and research, shaping the way we understand and interact with technology to learn and innovate. So today, Prof. Khan will be sharing his insights on AI in education and research. Please join me in welcoming Prof. Khan. Now, please.
Hi everyone. So this afternoon I'm recording the talk on the laptop, and I understand libraries has already secured permission to do this, but the talk will also go on YouTube so that you can reference it later on and share it with your colleagues if you want. The slides are actually already available, so you can take them. There's the QR code also at the end of the talk in case you want to know. So I was asked about, AI in education and research. Sorry. So I'll talk more about how that works. Can you guys hear me all right in the back without the recording mic? Is it okay without? Can you hear all right? Yeah. Then I'll just talk like this because my family knows I'm a loud talker. Yeah. So my name is Min. I'm like that. I'm called like the minimum function, so it's very easy to remember. My administrators always complain that I send back very terse responses, and I tell them, look at my name. Okay, so I want to start with a parable first. When we have AI, a lot of people say it's just like technology, right? But if you go back many, many, many years, thousands of years actually, we've been facing the problem of technological advance for the entire time, right? When people originally did education, if you can think about Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, they did this orally, face to face, right? They didn't have paper, they didn't have pens, right? And when we introduced the printing press, right, and we said you can write things down, you can externalize what information you have, you pass it on to others and they can learn through that, right? That's why we have libraries, right? But that was considered a huge technological disruption, right? We like to use this word disruption, right? And people thought, maybe that would be a problem because people would lose the ability to articulate themselves, right? Because you could write it all down. You could take as much time to polish your arguments, and people wouldn't be able to argue anymore centrally, here, present, now, like I'm doing with you, right? So AI is a tool, is something new, and it is a technology, but we have survived many technological advances, right? Libraries is representative of that, right? I mean, if you go to Plato's times, they said libraries. Who needs libraries? You just learn how to argue. You remember on your own, right? Why do you need to externalize it into something like a piece of paper or a papyrus scroll, right? And there have been people who've rebelled against that, okay? You may know about the Luddites. Who here knows about Luddites? Have you heard about them before? So in I think 17th century London and around that time, if you were a weaver, okay, you learned how to weave well, you were actually a well paid person because it was very important to be able to make fabric in a very uniform, very codified manner. So you can think about like 1,000 count types of thread fabrics. But back then, if you had a weaver's job, you were considered well off, well established. Okay, and it could guarantee you for life. People actually came into pubs who were weavers, and they put money in their hats. This is a urban legend because they were so rich. It was a well-paying job. But what happened? the Industrial Revolution happened, right? And then people created what they call an automatic loom, right? Well, we know where world's fabrics come from today. It comes from China, right? A lot of them, or from Thailand or other places in Southeast Asia, but they're all made by machine, right? So at that time, the weavers of the world united in London, and they said, we don't want you to use these machines. We want you to pay us as artisans of this craft to do this. And they unified again around this guy who's probably fictional. His name is Ned Ludd. And they went to destroy these machines. They said, no, you're going to pay us good money for it. You're not going to outsource to machines. And this is the story we are facing now, right? Because everyone is worried. Are we going to be replaced by machines? Are our jobs going to be taken away from us? We are reference librarians, but I checked, ChatGPT can also answer the questions that my patrons ask me. Are we in trouble? And the answer is no, because we have come through this before. Libraries exist because of a technological disruption. It was different before we had papyrus. It will be different after we have AI. So it will be there. We have to embrace it. So AI is a transformative tool, okay? It will be here. We have to embrace tools. This is why you are here in Singapore, right? You were selected for this program, right? Because you're forward thinking. That's why you're here. But we have no idea what AI is. How can we embrace something we don't really know? Well, that's why I think Natalie and company asked me to talk about it. Okay, so I say, well, AI is going to be around. I'm sure some of you have used it. How many here have used ChatGPT or interacted with an AI? Yeah, most of us, right? And if you're not one of them, that's fine. It will come your way, Your patrons have, for sure. Your students have. Your faculty have, okay? And I'd like to say it's just like an assistant, okay? But I'm going to use a more controversial term. I'll say it's like a reference librarian, okay? Because it can do a lot of what we do in libraries, in part, not at the same level. And so we need to make sure our faculty and students know what the limitations are. And that's important too, that we know what the limitations are. Because how can we instruct our staff, our students, if we ourselves don't engage with these tools, right? It's like all of us as parents trying to teach our children how to use the phone. I mean, they know how to use it better than we do, right? Okay. So there are some characteristics that you've probably already figured out, right? These things are always on. You can be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can use ChatGPT to answer a question. It will give you an answer within 5 seconds. Try to get a reference librarian to answer your question at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's not possible, right? Because we're humans. AIs are not human, right? They can respond anytime, which is a really helpful response pattern. Now, another thing that you may or may not know is it gives popular averages response. That is because of the way that the systems are trained, okay? When I mean trained, they're like how they're created, okay? They consume information on the internet, okay? They average all of that out to give a response, okay? That means the responses are okay for the most part. They're not terrible, but they're not also top of the line either. They're somewhere in the middle, okay? They respond better to well-specified instructions. If you tell it exactly what you want, it has a better chance, and I use the word chance in quotes, of giving you a good response, okay? But again, ARs are getting smarter. They're actually learning how to specify instructions to themselves, okay? Like you may ask your patrons, okay, how would you go about finding this information, right? Can you think step by step? What references would you consult, right? What pieces or who would you talk to? They're also doing this in AI, okay, to try to improve their responses, okay? And that's why it comes back to that last point. It's getting better at learning from its mistakes. So our stakeholders, whether they're students, faculty, fellow librarians, okay, they're all becoming managers of a whole team of reference librarians that are, they're okay. They're not the top of the line staff, okay? But because they're doing that, they all have to, all of us, as well as our patrons, have to know how to manage AI, okay? Because the AI will give outputs. Some of them are correct, some of them are wrong. All of them are created very fast, okay? But sometimes we don't know how to check it, okay? So that's the problem. We have to show our students, our faculty, um, our researchers what they need to know to manage their expectations. Okay, in education, NUS is very happy that we have coalesced a team of people in teaching and learning to try to assemble ideas for how to use AI. And I'm pleased to present some of these on behalf of that committee. So again, you don't have to take notes, but because the slides are available. But these are some of the ways that NUS faculty, our various experts have thought about how you can use AI, okay, between students and faculty members. I'll talk about research later, okay? This is just about education, okay? Generative AI as an idea generator, as a model generator, as a personal assistant, as a teaching assistant, as an analyst, and to help with creating assessments and assignments. Okay, so we're going to step through each of these really fast. Okay, as an idea generator, well, because AI responds very rapidly, we can formulate the problem of managing back to the student, right? You can say, well, you can treat this as a conversation about how to approach your assignment. Maybe I give you an assignment specification. It's not that well formed. I ask you to form it better because that's what the real world is like. Nobody gives you an assignment in the real world. Just says, do this task, right? How do I do that task? What steps are involved? Well, you can ask the AI, right? And you have to think around what the AI misses as well, right? So ask the AI to help students in deciding how to structure the assignment, what things matter in the assignment for it to be considered successful, okay? We can also use it as a model generator. What we mean by that can be various things, okay? So for example, we can say, use the AI to simulate a stakeholder, right? Here we are in this room, okay, figuring out what AI means for librarians, right? Well, we can do this too. We can ask generative AI, hey, ChatGPT, what does AI mean in the libraries for a student, right? I'm embodying it. Say, tell me, for an undergraduate student in, engineering, going to take this midterm next week, what does AI mean? Okay, tell me what AI means if I'm a librarian serving patrons who only know how to ask questions about where's the restroom, okay? Those are the types of things that we can also ask, right? So the more specific we do it, and the more we can prompt and say, we have a persona, specific types of people we want you to envision, and how they would respond to this, it can help students imagine, right? So many times in, let's say, business school or in public policy, we give them case assignments, right? Say, okay, imagine you're making a business plan. How would you pitch it? Then you have to think about various stakeholders, like why would somebody invest in it? Who would use this product? What safety considerations are there? And each of these are represented by a different stakeholder with different ideas of what's important, right? So the AI can simulate this if you just ask it to. You say, pretend that I'm a university lecturer, okay, I'm very short on time. or I have a lot of time to study. What resources would I use? Okay? So we can ask, as a reference librarian, our students to use AI for these purposes, okay? To help them think around corners, okay, about how our assignments, our work can be catered for their needs, okay? You can also ask them to use it as a personal assistant, right? So many of us, as faculty, I'm one of the faculty in School of Computing. When I teach, I produce these 2 hour long videos. Do students actually pay attention during the 2 hours? Of course not, right? That would be silly, right? So perhaps we can ask the AI to help summarize, right? And then ask the summaries, ask them to critique each other, right? Ask the students, okay, once you've gotten this summary from the AI, do you think it's an accurate reflection? What things did it miss? Are there any parts that need to be paying attention to? Like the students will always ask you, we covered this during lunch, what is on the final exam, right? So maybe summarize according to what might be on the final exam, right? So that the students can focus their attention on what they need. A lot of times, a personal assistant can also handle other things like, okay, here are the dates for the assignment. When should I be paying attention to what parts so I can make sure that I accomplish these tasks on time, right? Because sometimes the assignments are, maybe a month in advance, and then they come at the very last minute and say, oh, I haven't had time to do the assignment. Can you extend it? And you're like, no, I told you a month ago you have to do it. So now we can recommend ahead of time, right? Use the AI to help you schedule when you need to get things done, because it's not only my class, it's a whole bunch of classes that the students or the faculty need to teach or learn from. Okay? Another one that's somewhat important these days is providing mental support. So especially in NUS, we have a lot of students that are super stressed out about how they can do well in their courses and find jobs after graduation. Sometimes it's helpful to have somebody to talk to, even if we know it's not actually a person, right? So having mental support through AI is an up and coming area. That's, of course, a note of concern too, because you don't want the AI giving improper advice. I think you've heard of cases where AI has actually, because it was not controlled, actually told people to end their lives, right? So we don't want anything of those things coming up. How about a teaching assistant? I mean, when we think about AI being 24/7, and I said a reference librarian won't ever be able to answer a query at 3 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? When do undergraduate students study for their exams the next day? 3 o'clock in the morning, right? They do this, they cram for their exam, and they want to know an answer to a question right then and now that wasn't clear in their lecture notes. That is why AI can be useful, okay? But again, we have to be careful as reference librarians, and that we advise faculty, make sure that answers to typical questions that your students ask are actually credible, right? Because if they're not, you have to warn your students, this I told you, okay, it's too new. The AI generally doesn't know this subject area. Don't trust its answers, okay? That's very important to convey, okay? What about as an analyst or enabler, right? So we've had these cases where in many courses in NUS, especially upper level classmen, we ask them to do team projects, okay? Like all of us sitting at the table, later on, maybe you have to do an exercise, right? So if you're doing this for multi-weeks, right? You have a team composition, it can be helpful to ask the AI, okay, here are some different people. Maybe we all take this quiz together. Can you help us figure out who's best suited to what role on the team? Right? I mean, that's a good way. Maybe if a detailed oriented person can do the editing, somebody who's more creative can do the visioning, somebody who's more detail, deadline oriented can make sure that we're on time for things. That is another way that you can ask the AI to help facilitate interactions among people, okay? AI is never meant to replace what people do. It is meant to augment capabilities, right? So we can ask it to give suggestions, and then on our team, we can say, well, I don't agree with this assignment. Actually, I think this is more my strengths than what the AI identified. Okay? One that happens a lot with faculty is, oh, can AI write homework assignments for me? Or better yet, I don't want to grade the assignments. Can AI grade it for me? Okay? There are lots of caveats there. And these are very, very important to talk with your stakeholders about, both students as well as faculty. Okay? But you can decide what is the right measure. Many times, because we can see in the future, okay, a lot of these simple tasks of fact recall are no longer relevant. Just like Google brought about the era of being on demand right away from keywords, right? And Wikipedia has, again, at the beginning, not be trustworthy, but now it is, be able to do this. Then we can say that, we want to consider AI being able to answer questions well, okay? But we can elevate this to say, okay, maybe we can consider higher level assessments for our students, right? So we can say, okay, we want to create assignments that use information that the AI doesn't know about, like private information, okay, information that's in recent public news, or in certain cases, multimedia, okay? Some of those capabilities, like multimedia, AI is now somewhat capable of handling. Just within the last 6 months, now it can understand charts and tables. So some of the things that we tell you even today will change in the next 6 months. Okay? So that's from the education side. And again, I stress that we need to have these conversations both with students about the appropriateness of use of AI and the importance of documenting how they're using AI, okay, as well as with faculty. Sometimes faculty say, why do I need to grade anymore? I don't need to be present, okay? And that's also wrong, right? We have to correct their perceptions about what is the correct use. Okay, how about education, research? So in research, you may know the acronym FAIR. FAIR is about findability, accessibility, integration, and reuse. Yeah, I heard the words in the back, right? So these are all of the different things that are important for researchers, because when we do research, again, as a scientific or scholarly way, we need it to be replicable, right? Other people must be able to build on what we've discovered, right? So that means being able to do all four stages of this: the finding, the accessibility, the interoperability, and the reproducibility as part of research. Okay? So there are good standards for doing that, okay, where we can use AI to help with that process, right? So that's where it brings it back. So I know we've talked in libraries a lot about metadata, the quality control, authority control. All of these things are very important, right? But AI can help us with those tasks because some of them are very tedious. Who wants to spend a lot of time going through a set of collections and then saying, okay, what's the subject call number, what's the LC call number for this particular resource, right? Okay, so if we can define what these things are, task the AI to do them, then we can be the checkers. We can say, okay, I assign it to this junior reference librarian, the AI. It does the task for me. And now, as the senior managing a reference library, my job is to check and correct all of the things that the AI did incorrectly. Okay, so there are lots of these steps. I won't go through them, but that is one place where we can do that. Okay, so I want to highlight that when we think about fairness as part of that acronym, actually AI is really intrinsically built for that. Okay, there's a lot of parts where library has a lot of tedium in the way we have to do things. We care about the carefulness and the coverage and the recall of all of these things because a library is only as good as its weakest link, right? So we need to make sure that these things are done appropriately and the scope and quality is uniform as much as we can. We can't be entirely like that for all of the different things, okay? So when we are trying to do that, we need to look at the accessibility, the interoperability, and the reproducibility using AI. Okay? So that means looking at all of these different resources together. You've used ChatGPT or maybe other large language models, okay, to answer maybe everyday questions or queries from students or faculty. We can also ask it to extract metadata. We can also ask it to figure out where this claim comes from, where is the licensing, appropriate licensing methods for certain resources, or also for quality checking, right? To check whether certain resources are built appropriately. Okay, so AI is a tool that computer scientists have built, people in my area, but it is useful for many different people, right? And just like paper started a new institution called the library, I believe that AI itself is going to provide the opportunities for many of us in this room to look at libraries in a new light, okay? To figure out what is it that AI can do appropriately, that we can help to build better and richer knowledge sources for our future. So I'll close with a couple words on the fine print. One is that if you've ever used AI, you will notice that it always tries to answer you in a confident manner. Okay? Even when it's dead wrong, it will tell you it's correct. It'll even, you can tell it, please give me some sources for this claim. And it will happily give you sources that don't even exist, right? Why does it do that? Does anyone know? Okay, there is a step in the process when we build AIs. Okay, I won't tell you the technical name, but what it does is it asks people to grade responses, okay? So you notice when you give a question to the AI, sometimes it'll give you the chance to say thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Okay? When you give the thumbs up, you're telling the makers of that AI system, this response is good. Do more like that, okay? Now, as a reference librarian, when you tell patrons, I'm not quite sure about that, what do you think their response usually is? Okay, do they like that? No, they'll say, well, can you get the answer for me or something, right? But they want something from you. That's why they came to you in the first place, right? If they wanted a response of, I don't know, that's why I'm asking you, right? So what happens when we keep on saying thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down? It means that that response is no good. So AI makers had tried to do that. They said at the beginning, okay, I don't know the appropriate answer for this question. Here's my guess. People said, no good. Okay, then they tried, here's my guess, but you should check your sources at the bottom. Better yet, here's my guess. Even better, okay? So that's why we have this problem that we are facing, because as human users, you who have used AI, and maybe you've given a thumbs up or a thumbs down too, we have actually encouraged this, okay? We are reaping the fruits of what we have sown, okay? So as reference librarians, we tell our students, our faculty all the time, check your sources. But people don't want to do that, right? It takes time and effort. And that's why the AI has told them only at the very bottom of a response, this is not a credible statement. Please check your sources. Terms and conditions apply. You blah, 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 right? It's all the fine print, okay? So we have to tell our stakeholders why we cannot always trust AI. And we have to check our sources, okay? We have to tell them to go slower, because AI, you can use it very quickly, right? I mean, you've seen it yourself. You just ask the question, boom, the answer is already there. Is it right? Who knows? Okay? But you have to check. I mean, we are reference librarians. We check. Do our faculty check? Do our researchers check? Our students? Who knows, right? Okay, so we want to go from just the stage on the stage, like in the first slide that I presented to you, to all of us, all of the people around the stage, now it's the AI, to question whether the AI is doing things appropriately, right? Having that is a part of library education, which we covered this morning, right? About how to make sure things are appropriately done. Okay, so as part of library education, we need to scaffold to build a sense of mastery and purpose. It's terrible when we see students like, oh, AI is doing everything that I can do. I don't have anything to contribute to society, right? I've lost my locus of control. I feel bereft, okay? We need to embrace AI, to understand it, so we can tell other people how to use it appropriately. That is our mission as librarians. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I did have another recorded keynote that you can watch, but I've written it on the slides. And again, if you want the slides, the QR code is there, and I'm sure Natalie and others will share the slides with you. But I want to just end with one caution, is this part about accessibility bias, okay? So FAIR contains the first letter F. F stands for findability, okay? Why is that a problem as well as an opportunity, okay? Why? Because it used to be not everything was online, right? So we have a lot of books, we have a lot of collections, they're under lock and key. Who can find them? Well, in FAIR, we said digitize everything so that we can make them findable, okay? That's great. And AI is trained on whatever is findable, okay? It's not trained on every piece of knowledge. And that is why, in part, we are here, right? Because we want to make sure that resources, knowledge in Southeast Asia is accessible to all. It can't be people in the US dictating how Peranicans do things here in Southeast Asia. That doesn't make any sense. But it will be what happens if that material is findable and our material is not. Okay? Now, that was the story 10 years ago when we created the acronym FAIR. Okay? Now it is not so much like that, because in the future, just like everything else, it will be whatever is marketed. You can think about all of the social media we consume, right? These are done by recommender systems. You go to Facebook, you go to Snapchat, Instagram. These are all driven by doom scrolling, right? All of this stuff, right? Okay, how does it decide what to show you? Okay, it shows you because it is marketed. Somebody spent money to make it appear on your screen, okay? And we have to be able to combat that, or at least be aware of that, so we can recommend the right resources for our students, our faculty, and our researchers. Okay? That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivian. Wow, thanks, Vivian. So many quotable quotes in your